Welcome back to Football Daily, where we have a controversial one for you today. An 11 of the worst signings in 2021. There's some surprising choices in here, so let's get started. Goalkeeper Orestis Karnezis to Lille. Before Chelsea decided to splash £72 million on Kai Havertz, the biggest transfer of the summer by far had been Napoli's acquisition of Lille forward Victor Osimhen. The Nigerian cost the partner pay a giant £63 million, but there is more to this transfer than meets the eye. As part of the deal, Lille agreed to buy Napoli's veteran Greek keeper Orestis Karnezis for £4.5 million, a fee that is arguably more outrageous than the one that took Osimhen to Italy. At 35 years old, Karnezis is no spring chicken, not helped by the fact in 1920 he didn't kick a ball. The season before wasn't much better for the 49-capped international, as he made just 9 appearances in Serie A. Karnezis is probably best remembered in the UK for a dismal spell at Watford in 17-18, where he conceded 24 goals in 14 appearances and kept a save percentage of below 60%. All in all, it's surprising he even signed for Napoli in the first place, and even more baffling they got £4.5 million for him 2 years down the line. Defender Branislav Ivanovic to West Brom. Aside from Grady D and Ghana, West Bromwich Albion have made some questionable signings in their hunt for Premier League survival. Callum Robinson offers little to be desired, but ahead of them both was the capture of former Chelsea legend Branislav Ivanovic. Don't get us wrong, Ivanovic has had a career that should be rightly celebrated. He won it all during 377 appearances for the Blues before going on to claim 2 Russian Premier League titles in a 3.5-year stint with Zenit St. Petersburg. But all good things have to come to an end. And in his first season in Russia, he was only offering 1.5 tackles and interceptions per game. That was in a division where Zenit are a dominant force, a far cry from the baggy status in the Premier League. Life at West Brom will be tough, and not made any easier by the fact Ivanovic is now a veteran of the game aged 36. Slaven Bilic may hail the experience of his new Serbian warrior at the back, but this is unfamiliar territory for Ivanovic, which after everything he has achieved may prove tiresome once the defeats start rolling in. Defender Pablo Mari to Arsenal. Pablo Mari should consider himself very fortunate to have converted his loan spell at Arsenal from Flamengo into a permanent transfer. The Spaniard arrived in North London with an excellent reputation, having captained the Ruben Negro to domestic and continental glory, but has spent much of his time as a gunner riddled with injury. So far, the 27-year-old has made merely 3 appearances for Arsenal, including a run-out in the FA Cup. And while he looked fairly assured in those games, it seems bizarre Mikel Arteta pressed ahead with a £7 million move considering his current injury record. It also means that Arsenal are heavily stocked to the back for 2021, with Gabriel and William Saliba joining a squad also featuring Rob Holding, David Luiz and the injured pair of Chambers and Mustafi. Considering Arteta is still keen on bolstering his midfield options this summer, you can't help but think that the money spent on Mari could have been better used elsewhere. Defender Alessandro Florenzi to PSG. When PSG lost Thomas Meunier on a free transfer to Borussia Dortmund, everyone assumed a big name would replace him. But that didn't prove the case, as after links with Arsenal's Hector Bellerin, along with Juventus' Mattia De Sciglio, ultimately Roma's Alessandro Florenzi walked through the door at the Parc des Princes. Needless to say, it's not quite the star signing PSG fans have come to expect. Florenzi only made 12 Serie A starts in 1920, scraping together just over 1,000 minutes of game time before being sent on loan to Valencia. He didn't even have injury to blame for his lack of action, rather a disappointing return of only 2 tackles and interceptions per game and a mere single goal involvement all season. This is hardly the mark of an elite right-back set to push PSG on. The Italian joins on a 12-month loan with an option to buy at the end. If he is serious about relocating to the French capital in the long term, the 29-year-old will have to significantly up his game time next season. Midfield Oliver Burke to Sheffield United. It's hard to understand what compelled Sheffield United to give Oliver Burke another crack at the Premier League. Chris Wilder has clearly seen something that others are missing, as Burke's career has failed to ignite since his eye-catching £13.7 million move to RB Leipzig back in 2016. His foray into the Bundesliga lasted no more than a season, while his return to the English game didn't fare much better, clocking up just 2 assists in 17-18 as West Brom were relegated from the top flight. He has only played 83 minutes for the Baggies in the league since, while loan spells at Celtic and Deportivo Alaves have offered little to get excited about. In fact, since leaving Nottingham Forest for Germany, Burke has only ever scored 7 times in all competitions, a miserable return for a player once lauded for his attacking contribution. At 23 years old, there is still every chance the Scotland international's career could reignite again, but that will probably happen in the lower leagues, rather than the top flight where he clearly doesn't belong. Midfield Miralem Pjanic to Barcelona. There was no way we could make this team without giving you another reminder that Barcelona swapped Arthur Melo for Miralem Pjanic this window. In a team that was crying out for youth, the Blaugrana plumped for the 30-year-old Bosnian, while sending a 24-year-old Brazilian back to Juventus. Not only that, they bought a man in decline, as in 1920, Pjanic hit the lowest key pass and shots per 90 numbers of any of his past 6 seasons. In fairness to the former Roma star, he will offer Barcelona some much needed creativity in the midfield, and may find a fresh challenge in a new league is just what he needs to rediscover some form. But it shows the poor leadership at Barcelona that Arta had to be sacrificed in order to make this move happen, as the former Gremio man really didn't want to leave. With Messi ahead of him, Pjanic's numbers will probably improve this season, but as a long-term solution to Barca's midfield needs, this move is frankly disappointing. Central midfield, Weston McKennie to Juventus. We could easily be wrong, but it's hard to see how Weston McKennie's move to Juventus benefits either the player or the club. McKennie was a solid box-to-box midfielder for Schalke last season, making 28 appearances as Die Königsblauen slumped to 12th in the Bundesliga. But in reality, he wasn't one of the vital performers in his side, ranking 7th in the Schalke squad for shot-creating actions, and 3rd in the midfield for tackles and interceptions. As a defensive force, Suat Serdar was much more productive. A rumoured switch to either Southampton or Aston Villa was understandable, though no one would have predicted Juventus making an approach of their own. McKennie eventually signed on for a season-long loan with a 16.5 purchase option at the end of the season. The American international joins a stacked midfield at the Old Lady with Khedira, Rabiot, Ramsey and Rodrigo Bentancur. Not only that, Arthur Melo arrived in Turin for a massive £72 million and will be expecting to play. Despite playing well on his debut against Sampdoria, the 22-year-old could be in for a long season on the bench. Midfield, Arturo Vidal to Inter Milan. The signing of Arturo Vidal proves once again that Antonio Conte has no interest in building a long-term project at Inter Milan, and would rather chase immediate success. He has already signed a 34-year-old Alexander Kolarov, along with 2020 surprise package Ashley Young, now 35. And pushed hard to bring in a 33-year-old Vidal. That was despite Inter having the opportunity to sign Italian sensation Sandro Tonali, who ultimately went to AC after Conte showed a preference towards the veteran Chilean midfielder. In the short term, Vidal will probably do okay for Inter, especially in attack. Last season he scored 8 and assisted 2 for Barca, despite dropping to just 1.3 shots per 90. But his defensive actions per game are all in decline, suggesting the speed of the game is catching up with the former Bayern star. Nerazzurri fans are understandably bereft at the decision to sign Vidal over Tonali, because once Conte inevitably leaves following a boom and bust tenure in charge, all that will be left behind is an ageing squad with little value going forward. Midfield, Bertrand Traore to Villa. So far Aston Villa have enjoyed a very impressive transfer window. Ollie Watkins arrived with new keeper Emiliano Martinez, and even Jack Grealish has extended his contract. But the decision to spend £17 million on Lyon winger Bertrand Traore must surely be scrutinised. The former Chelsea star is by no means a bad player, even scoring 13 times and creating 4 assists as recently as the 17-18 Ligue 1 campaign. But that output halved in 18-19, while last season proved one to forget for the Burkina Faso international. From 23 league appearances, Traore registered only 4 goal involvements. Not only that, his shots per game numbers fell to a career low 1.6, and he missed his XG by almost 3. It's no surprising that when Rudy Garcia took over as boss back in October, Traore fell to the sidelines. At 25, he's still young and does boast a decent amount of European experience. But when it comes to providing the vital goals necessary to push Villa on, we are not convinced Traore is the man for the job. Striker, Karl Toko-Ekambi to Lyon. It's a real surprise that Lyon decided to make Karl Toko-Ekambi's loan move from Villareal permanent, after the Cameroonian forward scored just 2 times in all competition for Les Gonnes. Though he isn't without his strengths, as a goal-scoring threat he struggled to inspire. In the first half of the season at Villareal, the 28-year-old did actually score 6 times and take 3.6 shots per 90. In France, that rate almost halved, while his shot on target percentage dropped to a career low 30%. Had he found his shooting boots more often, their Champions League semi-final with Bayern Munich would have been a much tighter game. Lyon still paid over £10 million for his services, meanwhile selling a 20-year-old Amin Gouiri to Nice for £6.3 million. So far this season, Gouiri has scored twice from 4 games, while Toko-Ekambi is yet to find the net once from over 260 minutes of action. Lyon looks set to lose more of their attacking threat to big spenders this summer, and unfortunately for them it doesn't appear their new striker is the man to make up the difference. Striker, Alvaro Morata to Atletico Madrid. Strictly speaking, Alvaro Morata's permanent £57.5 million switch to Atletico Madrid from Chelsea was agreed back in July 2019, 6 months into an 18-month loan deal. But considering his form in front of goal in that time, the Rojiblancos probably wish they could go back on that decision. In a year and a half, he has only scored 18 times in La Liga and registered just over 1 shot on target per game. In fact, Morata scores with less than 1 in 5 of his attempts on goal. When you consider the fact £161 million has been spent on the 27-year-old over the years, that goal return simply has to be better. Atletico may have struggled for creativity in the midfield in 1920, but the fact that Simeone was playing Diego Costa ahead of Morata towards the end of the season indicates that the Spanish international could do more. £57 million is a lot to spend on a striker that occasionally scores, and Simeone will know that money could have been better spent improving other areas of the squad. What's shocking is that Morata could actually be on the move again this summer, as Juventus reportedly want to bring him back to Turin on a £9 million loan deal with a £41 million option to buy. It would be yet another staggering transfer for the Spaniard, and one we just can't get our heads around. So guys, that was our 11 of the worst signings of the summer. What did you guys think of the list? Do you think any of the inclusions were unfair? And do you think anyone else should have made it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.